Many of you have read articles I've written under the Ministry of Concord Solutions, but this is the first video, and I hope this will be the first of many to engage you and other people in hopes of creating greater health and sustainability for the church in America. Why am I doing this? Because I believe that the church in America is in an ebb. God remains powerful, he's faithful, he's good, but that doesn't mean we don't experience ebbs and flows in the health of the spirituality of God's family, and that's the church. And at least in the West, I believe the church is in an ebb. We're not firmly centered on the truth of God's mercy, and certainly not on the ways of that mercy. We long not for redemption and restoration, but institutional success. We long for our leaders to bring us to greater and greater heights and are less interested in holiness and depth. And I want to give you one example of this. I don't bring this up to necessarily denigrate this person or this ministry, but I just think it's very representative of what I'm talking about. Paul Scanlon was the lead pastor of Abundant Life Church in the United Kingdom. LinkedIn has him listed as the CEO, the former CEO of Abundant Life Church in Bradford, England. Now, he left that church to become a motivational speaker and an organizational consultant. He's been doing that since 2012 or thereabouts. Again, I don't have any personal experience of Paul or a particular grievance with his ministry, and I don't even know how widespread his influence here is in America, but I do believe he's representative of a disposition about leadership in the church in the West. He's representative of the idea that pastoring is actually a hindrance to the success of the church. Take a look.
Well, let me say a little bit to you about the difference between pastors and leaders. I think we've made them one and the same thing, and I don't think they are. Most growing, thriving, flourishing organizations, including churches, are that because the person in charge is clearly a leader with the skills required to grow anything they're attached to. But I've observed that all organizations, and we're talking about the church here, but all organizations, especially the church, that are thriving around the world are that because they have a leader in charge. The leader may be called a pastor, but trust me, it is not their pastoral abilities or title or role that is bringing growth to that church. It is their leadership abilities. So pastors don't grow churches, leaders do.
Now, some people might protest that I'm taking Scanlon a little too literally, that he kept using quotation marks when talking about pastoring, and what it really means is that a certain model of pastoring is the problem. And it's true that being a nice guy, the desire to be inoffensive and affirming at every turn, does get in the way of effective leadership. But I would say it gets in the way of effective pastoring as well. Sadly, I believe that many who advocate for this idea of stronger leadership, of this leadership over against pastoring in the church, to understand the pastor as CEO, these folks really have no proper understanding of the mission of the church. What is the church called to do? To bear witness to the saving work of Christ and make disciples. And I have yet to be convinced that this can be done effectively or even efficiently by the megachurch and maybe even large church models in general. Organizational leaders do not make disciples. They organize people, they organize resources to produce a product. And in the case of the organizational leadership trend in the Western church, the product is a successful institution that bears the name of the church. It has people, it raises money, they build buildings, they may even do some good in the community. God often uses our less than faithful efforts to accomplish his purposes, but they attract consumers. They have a multitude of fans of their leadership. And again, none of this is bad in and of itself. And in fact, some of this may help in facilitating the mission of the church. But I have to ask the question, do they produce disciples? Do they proclaim the glory of God's victory through the weakness of the cross? When I think of these churches, my mind goes to the admonition to the church in Sardis from the Revelation 3:1. I know your works. You have the reputation of being alive, but you are dead. Simon Sinek, not a Christian, but another organizational leadership consultant in America and author of Begin with Why, is strangely and unexpectedly closer to a Christian understanding of leadership than Scanlon. Here's some of a presentation he gave a few years back.
I think that great leaders need to have empathy and perspective. And I think these things are very often forgotten. Leaders are so often so concerned about their status or their position in an organization, they actually forget their real job. And the real job of a leader is not about being in charge, it's about taking care of those in our charge.
The real job of a leader is not about being in charge. It's about taking care of those in our charge. I can hardly think of a better description of a pastor, a shepherd, an overseer, except for maybe the one that the Apostle Peter gave in his first letter in chapter 5. He wrote, "So I exhort the elders among you as a fellow elder and a witness of the sufferings of Christ, as well as a partaker in the glory that is going to be revealed. Shepherd the flock of God that is among you, exercising oversight, not under compulsion, but willingly, as God would have you, not for shameful gain, but eagerly, not domineering over those in your charge, but being examples to the flock. And when the chief shepherd appears, you will receive the unfading crown of glory." How is it that Simon Sinek gets it and Scanlon and so many other well-known church leaders do not, or at least they don't seem to? We have work to do in the church, and it's not first and foremost about training leadership to be more effective as organizational leaders, although that has its place. It's about repenting of our idolatry of institutional success and recapturing our love of the Lord and his people to take care of the people in our charge. Don't make fans, don't make supporters, don't make donors or subscribers or contributors. Make disciples, because that is the mission of the church.